Come make an Afro silhouette cookie with me. This is one of 4 cookies in the Black History Month set, where you can see there are 3 silhouette hairstyles and then 1 cookie decorated to the Black History Month colors. And to make this cookie, we're introducing something new. We're using tissue paper and edible markers, plural, 2 markers, a thick and a thin. And we're going to be starting off by tracing the design of this cookie. And some of the detail will get lost on this cookie. I just want to start off right on the bat. We have this adorable silhouette, and the silhouette will remain, but some of the details of this curl and this texture is just not going to follow through on this cookie, mainly because this is for beginners, and so we're using a 1 consistency icing for the silhouette and also for the outline, the rest of the cookie here. So you're going to start off by taking your fine tip edible marker and you're going to be tracing this onto some tissue paper. I also really great trick. You don't have to buy tissue paper. You can use coffee filters. And then I'm going to come through and just heavy-handed pushing through with this fine tip marker because it's the kind that has like the metal tip, right? So we can put a lot of pressure onto it. And I'm just outlining the cookie again, or I'm outlining the silhouette of this on this tissue paper onto the cookie, and I'm putting a lot of pressure onto this. It might not look like it, but there's a lot of pressure so I can kind of push the ink through this tissue paper so it can transfer onto the cookie. This is something I learned for writing onto cookies that have icing on them. It is incredibly faint if you see this, and I'm coming in with my fine tip marker again and just trying to draw it, and you just see it's just not transferring well. And I believe it is because just the butter content on this cookie is absorbing that ink so quickly. It's just really, really hard to see. And so that is why I recommend 2, a fine tip and a more felt tip marker. So I have this thicker felt tip. You can see we lose some of the design, some of the specific aspects of the original silhouette, but we keep the afro shape, and that's the most important part. And it'd be much easier to draw with this felt tip marker as well. Again, it is an edible marker. We're not coming in here with anything, and I just want to make sure I'm getting things lined up well because I kind of lost the design a little bit, and I'm seeing if I can just trace it a little bit more. It doesn't work. It doesn't work very well. I tried this so many times, and you think, Cami, you're making this cookie look really hard. Why do I want to do this? For how much it took me to kind of figure out how to get the shape on here, it is not what I remember about decorating these cookies. I remember icing the outline of these and just how much I loved them in the end. There are obviously things I would change. There's things I would change about every set, but I really liked how these cookies turned out. And so you will get past the weirdness of trying to trace this. And if you can draw it by hand, go ahead and skip the tracing and draw it by hand. I was just not confident in my drawing skills. And so I'm coming in and I'm tracing, and you can see I'm making these really big loops when it comes to kind of like the bangs or the front of the afro. And it's because it's an easy way to create that outline. I don't need to end my line anywhere specifically when I'm going and making these curves because all of that's going to be black anyways. So I don't need to worry about that, and I can actually speed up by doing these bigger U's or loops right here, so I can keep that icing flowing consistently from my piping bag. A good reminder here, you can't see it via the angle, but you want the icing flowing out of your piping bag. You don't want to be touching the piping bag tip to your cookie. There are exceptions to this, but as you are creating this outline, you want the icing to flow. You don't want to be necessarily forcing it. And another tip here, to go through and for each of these kind of U sections, fill it in with icing. Every other one. We're going to come back and fill in the rest, don't worry, but every other one you're going to want to fill in with icing. And this is because it allows the icing to settle a little bit. If we just went in and we're like, let's fill in every single one of these in a row, it would be really easy to overflow our outline right here. But giving it a chance to settle, because we got a lot of these U's to fill in, but giving it a chance to settle, we kind of lessen the opportunity for the icing to overflow from the outline. So we're just going to keep going in, adding a little bit at a time. I'm kind of reaching the end of my piping bag capabilities of how small it is versus how big my hand is in comparison. But because it is small, it gives you a lot of ability. It gives you a lot more dexterity than if you had a larger piping bag. So that's another tip when you're doing the silhouette cookies, is to have two different sized piping bags. One that you can kind of just fill in with, that'll be really helpful for the black patterned cookie. And then smaller ones like this one, where I can focus on the detail and I can cut a smaller hole for the tip of the piping bag, allowing me to have a little bit more precision with it and include more of that detail. And the same goes for the colored ones, because when we get to the red and the green and the yellow, which you're going to want to use to make 3 different versions of this Afro silhouette cookie, it's easiest if you have a more precise piping tip, a smaller hole on the end of it, so we can keep the detail of this Afro. So I'm just shaking it a little bit to even it out. And I will say I put this cookie aside and worked on some of the other cookies so I could let that black dry, and you'll see why it's so important in a second. It doesn't need to be fully dry. We just want it to have what in the cookier community we call a crust over. We want it to look, crusty is not the right word, but we want it to not be so shiny. You can see it's a little bit more matte, and I'm outlining this cookie in one of the 3 colors in yellow, and I'm putting a really solid outline on that cookie. And then I'm coming in, by solid I mean like 3 or 4 passes around it. So I have created a wall of an outline, and then I'm coming in, and this is again where I'd recommend having another piping bag that's a little smaller, has a finer cut hole for the tip on it, so that I can keep the beauty of this Afro and I can keep the precision and detail around it, which I lose a little bit with this larger cut piping bag hole. And another thing is, particularly when we get into filling in the face with color, I lose the shape of the bangs, the front of the Afro, and I also catch a little bit of the black of the silhouette. And we'll see that in a moment. Don't you worry. You'll see where I mess up, and you can see how you can fix it yourself in case it happens to you. So I actually want to come in with my scribe, and I'm just trying to get that shape back because I lost it. I lost the curls in the front. I lost the shape that I originally had drawn onto the cookie, so I'm using my scribe to push it around. And this is where it fails. I touched the black with my scribe a little bit, and I tried to move it around without wiping my scribe off, and just created this little corner of black and yellow mixed together. So I'm going to wipe my scribe off. I'm going to come back with a little bit of yellow and just dab it right on top. And it's going to even it all out. You're never going to know what happened. And then I'm going to fill in the rest of my cookie. And this is where this bigger piping bag comes in handy, because the tip is cut a lot larger, so I can fill in this space a lot faster. And once I do that, I'm going to come back with my cleaned off scribe. There's no black left on the scribe, so we can keep that yellow nice and poppin'. And just yellow, and I'm going to move the icing all the way to the edge so I can fill in any of the gaps that I have between where I flooded the cookie, where I put all that icing, and where I outlined the cookie with just that straight yellow. Now it evened out pretty nicely on its own, but there's just a couple spots to complete, and maybe make sure I can get a little closer in the face. And there is our Afro cookie. This one I'm showing you is in red. Like I said, you're going to make 3 of each of these colors. We have the pattern, we have Afro puffs, we have locks, and then we have the Afro that we just decorated together. Try them out and share with me how you did.